and we have with us Dr. Rowe, and he is in the middle of a property refurbishment. And we thought, because there are people that have been approaching us and saying that they are keen to invest overseas, and in particular in the UK, looking at how we can buy properties, add value to them. But it's not something that is, for someone that is just never done it before. There are lots of things to consider in order for it to be done right. So I think three things. Oh, I love the sounds of that. Three things to
Sorry, I'll come
really.
out a little bit.
No worries. I think three things to really consider, and I asked Dr. Rowe to talk us through, some of the other thoughts that he has. But for me, as an investor investing remotely from Singapore, I think what is very important to make sure that the property still stacks up in terms of numbers is
Yeah,
firstly the budget of the refurbishment, making sure that we don't go past that. The second thing
yeah,
is the timelines on the project, and making sure that it doesn't stretch, delay. And then the third thing is the most important, which is really having a team of people that you can trust on the ground, hands and feet, boots on the ground to really manage the project well. So those are my thoughts. Dr. Rowe, tell us a little bit more, and it really looks interesting. Great work I see going on at the back.
yeah. You can see
Tell us.
actually. I mean, if you look up there, look, there's a
Wow.
whole water tanking system there. We've got the electrics going on over here behind me. You might be able to see that.
Right.
So, I mean, let's just go back quickly over what you just talked about there, Daniel. Budget's really important. You're standing over there in Singapore, and I've got. So,
Oh, hello, right?
this is Jordan. This is Daniel in Singapore. Say hi to everybody watching in Singapore.
Hey, Jordan.
So Jordan basically heads up the team in terms of all the joinery and all the woodwork, which is the stage you're at now. So we had to work out a budget with him and work out what the best way to financially plan that, because there's a lot of work to do. Do we do it as a lump sum? There's a lot of variable elements here in this project, or do we do it on the basis that when he comes in, he works by the day, but he does longer days, and we worked out financially that was actually better to do that than to come up with a lump sum. The problem with a lump sum figure is usually when you're doing something remotely, like you might be doing from Singapore, as long as it's a project that doesn't have any unforeseen circumstances, you're fine. But this is a large project, probably 300,000, 400,000 pounds worth of renovation here. And sometimes it's better to have that little flexibility where you're in direct contact with them. So I'm able to do
Right.
that. But for example, you, Daniel, over there, and the fellow watchers, if you're doing a smaller project where the renovation might be 30,000, 40,000 pounds or more, you're better to lock that down because you don't really want a bottomless pit. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what we do on our end with some of our projects that are much smaller, I think, on most of our projects, like 30, 40,000, we've done projects
Yeah,
where they're like almost 200,000. But, I think most three-bedroom terrace houses where you were to, redo the whole place to make it really habitable. I think that's the important thing, to get a builder to give you a quote on the property so that it's not
yeah,
just a guesstimate on how much it is. Because when
yeah.
you then do your figures before you even, and this is a critical part for those of you watching, before you buy the property, you need to make sure you have your budget, refurbishment budget already on a quote. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's important because there's so many elements to this. So that you've got the electrics. So if I bring you back here for the people watching, you can see here we've got all the electrics here. That is one quote you're going to get. There'll be a separate quote for something like that, which is the plumbing. Then if you come into here, you can see we have a lot of joinery work going on here. So this is Charlie in the background there. That's all the woodwork. Now that alone could be thousands of pounds, and each one of those, if done properly, you can add up the sum of all these different quotes, and that gives you your final figure.
Yeah.
So really, if I was doing it from Singapore, actually, I'm going to ask Jordan while he's here. Can I just grab you for a minute?
Yeah.
So this is Daniel watching from Singapore. There's investors over here looking to buy over here.
Right.
When it comes to getting quotes on a project like this, it's more difficult because it's so large, isn't it? If somebody's watching remotely and they wanted to get a lump sum figure, that's better on the smaller projects, isn't it, than something like this where there's a lot of complexity.
If this was a brand new build,
Right.
you could get it like pretty much on the money.
So new
but
development,
yeah, with this, because there was like bits of existing, it was the case of tying it all together like Ryan had done. It's hard, and because it's always changing with like details and such.
Yeah.
it's constantly evolving, so it's very hard to price. I mean, you can get a ballpark figure. I mean, I don't know what it come in that with you and Ryan in the end, but I think if you do go through that way, it's having the team you can trust through recommendations.
Well, while you're here, Daniel, what's a question you might want to ask them over there about trust? Because that's an issue for a lot of people over there, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think, Jordan, hi, thanks for just being with us for a quick minute. I think you mentioned a great point about trust, because people are not, investors overseas are not on the ground, hands and feet on the ground like you guys are. And, I know you're managing the build there. What is one thing you could do in terms of giving the investors reassurance, over a length of a project, so that they know things are going well?
I mean, it always helps if you was investing over where you know someone like Rowan to vouch personally where they've seen
so a
recommendation where someone who's had a similar kind of project like that, where some things are so fast. If it's a new development, you can pretty much, as soon as you're out of the ground, you can price it and get it pretty much within what you want it to be. But where this is just having a good recommendation of someone who's had that same team in and has had a similar type of work, then that's that. Or if you have someone that you personally know on the ground, to be able to pop their head in once a week, or video FaceTime updates. Now, with the technology now, it's something you can have a walk around, spend an hour at the end of the week, have a walk around the project and explain. I think as long as communication's key. Really.
Yeah, that's
and you
true.
have photographs that so we saw photographs of Jordan's previous work as well, didn't we?
Yeah, and obviously I come recommended through Ryan, who was the main builder doing the whole job. It's literally, and then we come down and had a chat, and then it was just a case of feeling comfortable with one another, Rowan knowing we're going to do the best we can in the time frames and get the most value for money as such, and also from our perspective, us feeling comfortable going down that line of work as well, because it's obviously work. Both ways, really. You both got to feel comfortable with
absolutely
the time frames and with the general logistics of the job.
So if Daniel's got people over there that want to get in touch with you, is it all right for us to pass details?
Yeah, of course it is. Yeah, of course it is. Yeah, no problem at all. I mean, Rowan's got all my contact details. I mean, usually we don't run whole new builds. We take care of all the woodwork side of it. So joisting, roofing, and then when we get to the internals, we run the internals. But we've got access to a joinery shop as well. So if there's anything that's a little bit off the shelf, like a bit spoke, then we can make that machine to whatever anyone's requirements are.
And just to check, I mean, I work with other builders as well, but if you were to go into an existing property and it's in a distressed condition, you would be able to pick out what are the necessary things needed to be done and give us a quote on that.
Yeah, got a very good eye on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, and then if you're where you are and there was a property that you had and you wanted us to go and look at it, I would make all the notes that I can see something that you would want to get looked into.
Right.
So you've got a heads up, like i.e. the plumbing or the electrics, and if there's any damp or anything like that, then all we would do is, I would say, if I was running it, I would get a company in, I would get 3 quotes on your behalf, and then email all 3 quotes to you.
Yeah.
And then you can see the price comparisons, and then I would tell you who I felt were more suited to it, who represented themselves better, because it might not be necessarily the cheapest, it might be like the middle of the road company, because you do get the feel sometimes a lot of companies you don't get a like for like quote, so a lot of people would, because we try and price and foresee certain amount of discrepancies and stuff, but you get some companies that price it in a perfect world that on paper it looks really cheap. Then when you actually start going on, they go, we haven't allowed for that, or we haven't allowed for that. And also your nice small bill becomes much larger than your initial one. But because you're then tied in with that contractor, it's then very hard to break that. And then if someone comes in halfway through a job, they'll ask questions to, what am I coming in only halfway through now? Because they might be doubting yourself. Even though you're the innocent party, that does go through your head to, what I'm coming in at the back end of it, what have they done to the tradesman, what have the tradesman done, so it's
absolutely
just getting it comfortable.
I think the point you raised about trust, we were talking about 2 other points on the timescales extending. and the cost going up. So I think you kind of covered that, and it really comes down to a recommendation from someone you know on the ground, working with someone that you're comfortable with, and maybe tell us a little bit on the project management end. What are things that you would look out for to make sure that the project is managed well?
Well, when you'd like to think, when you go through the initial project, you would know, like, the electrics here, for example, you would know, if you knew from the outset downlighters, how, like, uplighters, if you wanted, like, lights in your, if you knew your spec you wanted straight away, give that to them, then there's no reason for that to deviate from that price, as long as everything's itemised. And it's a case of checking the quote, and yourself and the contractor being thorough with yourself to make sure everything's included. So when you've got that quote, if you've got 30 spotlights, you've got a quote for 30 spotlights, not 15. Because then when you start,
itemizing it,
I've only quoted for 15. Oh, I did write it there. And then you've got that, all right, it's not written on there, but if they knew about it, it should have been allowed for in the first place,
True.
Yeah, it's just being thorough from the offset and knowing what you want straight away. I mean,
the other thing Jordan said is communication, which is massive. You get that wrong and it's so expensive. Just one little thing. Even here, like today, we had security cables, lighting cables, and they're placing all of the wooden slats up in the roof. We literally called the electrician, didn't we?
Yeah.
And he confirmed where the positions were. If we hadn't been able to do that, he would have had to stop work, go to something else.
Right.
Yeah, so then it disrupts the flow of the project or what we're trying to, because we've got goals up here that we want to try and get before we go home and stuff. So if you come to a delay like that and you stop working in that room, you come down to work in that room, that's time of moving from one area to another, then getting reset up. It's time that you're losing. Because it's not that, it's because we can't, for us as well, we need to get this done as quick as we can because we've got other people waiting for us as soon as this done. So we can't.
Yeah, it's in your interest to do it well too. Yeah.
What's that? Sorry.
I was saying it's in your interest to do it well and in the
do it well and get it done.
Yeah. Also, we had to book Jordan in because he's so busy. I mean, when you're as good as he is, other people want his time. So it's like getting in and out as quick as possible.
Exactly, and for us, it's how I look at it. You still want to maintain the quality, but you've got to have a bit of a pace element to it. I mean, we come up. This is a new system and new setup that we haven't done before. We've done loads of cladding, but we've never cladded the ceiling inside of a building.
It's a Danish design, if you're wondering.
So, and there's like, rather than engineered flooring, it's literally, they've brought it themselves from the timber mill. So it's taken a little bit of persuasion to get some boards together. But again, that's where the trust aspect comes in because they can see us, Rara and Stina are here, so they can see the working, so you can sort of see the effort. But if they wasn't here, it's that trust of this has been a bit of a pig and it's not just a get-out clause because you want to hang it out, because we've got people waiting for us, so we need to get this done to move on to the next project. But obviously we're not undermining any quality or anything like that.
I mean, I would say to your investors that are watching this video, because I'm sure they'll watch it after we've recorded it as well, is what you said is right, having somebody on the ground as well.
That helps,
because you're what, like 13, 14 hours flight away, so it's having somebody that can just send photographs through, show the work's finished to the right standard.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm picking up a few things in terms of the managing the timing, week on week and the overall.
Well, I'll tell you what, right? Jordan's here over the next couple of weeks, so why don't we get him on a few videos?
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
That'll be lovely.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm
Thanks so much, Jordan.
At least 3 or 4 weeks. So
appreciate your time and your insights. Appreciate that.
No problem at all, Dan.
I'll wrap up.
Thanks.
Daniel. Cheers. We got a call as well, I think, at 3, haven't we, with a letting agent, I think. So
that's right. It's a busy day managing the portfolio.
What I'll do is I'll see if I can grab Jordan on a couple of other. If you tell me what things you want to cover, it'd be quite good to get. You can get a. What's nice is for everybody watching, you can get a sense of the nature of the people that we use here. I think when you're an overseas investor, everybody has this sometimes not such a positive picture about builders in different countries, but it's all about you as a person. There's a great tip for everybody watching. I think if you're the right type of person, you will attract the right type of people into your business, and we're very fortunate. And it's the same thing with what you've done in the north, Dan. You've got some great builders up there for the northern properties. Yeah,
absolutely. We'll try to get a video with one of the builders we use as well. And I think, he managed, I'll start talking about the larger project that we did, almost 200 grand worth of works. And he has the Gantt chart, it's every week he has his milestones that he's going to hit. And interesting thing that you spoke about.
And a Google Drive folder with photographs.
That's right.
So uploading the photographs, you can see the progress, which is exactly what Jordan was just saying there.
Absolutely. And it's funny that you mentioned about the time and the trust factor, because
Yeah, they just came out. He didn't even know that was it just jumped
but
out.
even if I flew over there and I looked at the cladding or I look at the bolts, I mean, he was going a bit into the detail there. I could stare at it
Sure.
all day and I wouldn't have a clue. So I think it's
Yeah.
it's also, one of the big mental hurdles overseas investors might have is, well, I can't see the property. But so what if you saw the property, you were live there? You need to have someone with the expertise, looking
Yeah,
through the lenses of expertise to be able to pick up what an ordinary man on the street wouldn't be able to see.
exactly.
Yeah.
And even if I spin the camera around when you're looking at things like this, if I can do it, I think it's here. Yeah. So when you're seeing a project like this is what we call chasing into the wall. So in Singapore, with your new build, you wouldn't see this. This all would be built into it. But here we've got existing structure. The electricians have had to chase a channel all the way down to put the sockets in. There are certain legal requirements for the height of those sockets above the ground level. If they're too low, you'll be outside regulations, which means your property won't be legal for letting. The boards have to be up to a certain standard. Again, having the right people in place. Otherwise, you get a property and you come to let it out, and of course, it isn't up to the right standard. You then can't operate as a remote landlord.
Yeah.
So these are all the things that we make sure in place. You've done that with the teams you've got, and it all gets signed off.
Yeah.
That way,
That's great.
you're a legally operating landlord. Even though you're overseas, it doesn't matter. Everything gets signed off. You're good to go, and then you get the income coming in.
Yeah. But I mean, just quick thing whilst I think we have about a minute left before I know we need to scoot off for another call. But I just noticing the board behind you, and looking around the work site management. These are things that I would look out for to know that it's well managed, right? It's not in a mess. The workers are disciplined. I mean, I was a military guy, isn't it? So
Yeah,
these are things
one of the signs, Daniel, is this. If I show you, it may not. I'll see if I can spin the camera very quickly. It may not mean a lot to anyone watching, but when you see pipe work that's so neatly done like that, that all the way down here. I've seen stuff that's all over the place. Haven't fixed it to the wall because it's hidden. It looks ugly, but that eventually will be hidden. But I've seen jobs where this is all over the place. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So it's tiny signs like that you look for when you're on a
Yeah.
project, and it gives an indication of the nature of the work.
And I mean, the last thing I would say to investors from overseas looking to invest remotely is this: not everyone might have the appetite to take on a refurbishment project like this, because as you see, you might buy a property at a good value, but there's so much intricacies in between to make sure that you can then turn around the property to a good standard and let it out. And I know some investors, they just tell me, hey Dan, I just want something hassle free,
Finished.
do all the work.
Exactly.
In fact, if you can put in a tenant for me, and it gives me a good 6 to 7% yield.
I agree, Daniel. I think that is definitely a very good point. There's different ways to walk into the market. If it's a case of I just want a good yield, 7%, 8%, 9%, maybe 10% yield, then allow the builders to do the work, buy the property finished, and then you're away. And that's another way to do it. I mean, as we've said before, you can come in and lend money and get a return on it, which beats the bank straight away. It's a great way to do it. Another way is to come in as a joint venture, maybe on a project like this, where you put the money in, the other person on the other side of the pond over here has the team together, and you split that cash flow with that person or the profit with that person, or you come in with full ownership. Maybe that's a way to think about it. Maybe you could do some coaching with people over there, Daniel, is to show them those stages. Because otherwise, if they jump in too deep, this will be too big a project for somebody.
Yeah, definitely not for a first project. I wouldn't recommend that.
Yeah.
Cool. But thank you so much. That was a real treat for the people over here.
Yeah, I wasn't. He was been working upstairs. He came out to go to the toilet, I think.
Okay, great. Thanks so much once again. And I think really grateful that we get to speak with you and Jordan over the next weeks. I think it doesn't look like much now, but in a few weeks, it's going to be an amazing beauty. I can see that already.
Lovely.
Yeah.
That's great.
Thanks, Dr. Rowe. And signing
Thanks,
off.
everybody.
Take care.